Good morning, and welcome to week 5 of our 6 week speech communication course here in summer 2. Well, we're continuing. Work on those speeches. I have to tell you, I love the topic choices that you've all have made. Okay. And a lot of you have even told me, as you were giving me your specific purpose statements, like, oh, I can't wait to do this speech. I really feel excited about it. I really feel strongly about this topic, that kind of thing. So I'm really happy to see a lot of the good topics. And also, some of you have already sent me your full content outlines. And I tell you what, they're really well done. I really do think that this is going to be some really good speeches. And I'm also going to give a pat on the back to some of the students I've had in the past because I think the four uh, sample outlines I've given you are excellent. And the funny thing is that if we were a face to face class, you would have about 50 of those to look at. And what I do is I bring them all to class. I have this big pile. I actually have it in a pile behind me over here by my bookshelf, and I just spread them out over this one big table where nobody's sitting. And at before class or at the end of class, if I end class a little early, you get to peruse through them and you get to look through all of them. But at least you guys have four, and I think they really give you a great example of how your speeches should flow, what they should look like, how they should be organized. But just remember that we're a little bit shorter on the speeches than those in the past. So some of those are either 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 minute speeches, whereas yours are 3 to 5 minutes. And you got to be careful. And I want to stress this, and I may not have done this before this semester, but I want to make sure that you get your speech within that 5 minute time frame. It's really important because in the quote unquote real world, as they like to say, there are going to be times when you're going to be speaking and you're not going to have forever to do your speech. And you want to make sure that when you deliver a speech, whatever the time frame is, you get your complete message out inside that time frame. Okay. For example, at town hall meetings, like in my hometown of Lyndhurst, North Arlington, other town hall meetings in Bergen County, they usually have town hall meetings like once a month, and they open it up to the public where you can get up and speak. And usually they limit you to 5 minutes. And I've actually seen people take more than 5 minutes, and they actually have to have like a police sergeant whisk them away when they're not nearly done during the time frame, or a board of education meeting. Let's say, for example, and I know a lot of parents are amongst our two classes here this semester. Let's say your town decides to cancel full day kindergarten, and they're only going to make it half day kindergarten. Well, that screws you up. Well, you want to speak about it at the board of education meeting. Well, there's about 7 other parents who also do. So if you're given 5 minutes, make sure you get that 5 minutes out, because if you're going way too long, there's about 6 other parents behind you, very angry, who don't like you anymore. All right. But probably the best example I can give you about the time frame is about 3 years ago. As a union leader amongst the faculty at Bergen, I went to go speak at the monthly Board of Chosen Freeholders meeting in Hackensack. And so the freeholders have a monthly meeting. The Bergen County executive was not there, but he, of course, meets with the freeholders before and afterwards. And I was going to give a speech about some things that were happening unfairly on campus. Well, little did I know who else was showing up was about 18 people who were speaking on a different topic, talking about some oil pipeline up in northwestern Bergen County, up by Oakland, that they were protesting. Well, all of those people showed up. They all want to speak. So we're all filling out this list, and suddenly I'm told that I have only 3 minutes to speak. Well, I had a lot more than 3 minutes to say. Luckily, all of those people spoke before me, and I was able to condense my speech. And when I finally did do my speech, I timed it out. It ended up being 2 minutes and 57 seconds, but I was able to get everything I wanted out in that time frame. So make sure 3 to 5 minutes. That's what you're shooting for. Again, same thing as last time. You've got an introduction with an attention gainer and a preview. At least 2 main points, possibly 3, but you can leave it to 2. And of course, those are 2 reasons why we should agree with you or why we should take that particular action. And then, of course, a conclusion with a review and some form of closure. So basically, the speech, the persuasive speech, is pretty much like the informative speech, except there is one glaring difference. See, you're now trying to influence your audience. And in order to influence the opinion, attitude, and behavior of your audience, and in order to get people to think the way you do, feel the way you do, share that same opinion or idea, or actually get people to do something you want them to do, you have to establish a believability in the eyes of your audience that who you are and what you're saying is true, or is right, or is correct. And when you establish a believability that who you are and what you're saying is true, right, and or correct, you then have established credibility. And that's what credibility is that believability in the eyes of your audience that who you are and what you're saying is true, right, and or correct. Okay? You want to come across as sounding credible. And it's really, really difficult sometimes, or it can be rather easy. Some people establish credibility long before they deliver a speech. They have it already established. I've seen people actually establish credibility during a speech so that they may not have been taken so seriously when the speech began, but by the end of the speech, they've got everybody's attention and they've got everybody's respect. Okay? So now you're looking to establish credibility in order to get people to be influenced by you, by that believability in the eyes of the audience. Now, there are three types of credibilities they talk about in your textbook. Now, the first type of credibility is someone who establishes credibility based on competence. And there's three key terms there: the wisdom, authority, and or knowledge that someone demonstrates about that particular topic. All right. For example, if, for example, there's a speech about, COVID-19 and how it's going to affect Bergen Community College, and the guest speaker was Martha Stewart. All right. For those who don't know, I know a lot of you know who Martha Stewart is, but for those who don't, Martha Stewart knows, she's probably America's greatest homemaker. She knows a lot about how to cook a rutabaga. She knows how to decorate your kitchen. She knows how to embezzle $500 million. But probably nothing about COVID-19 and how it affects colleges she's not going to know. So she wouldn't have any credibility there. But you want someone who's speaking to demonstrate competence, wisdom, authority, and or knowledge of the topic to then establish competent credibility. But let's take it away, for example, from speeches. And let's talk about those of you who are watching me right now. Okay? If you're watching me right now, and there are still 42 of you registered for the two classes, you're taking a summer speech class. It's the fourth week, last week of July. And yet you're still taking a college course. Why? Because someone spoke to you. Someone influenced you. Someone told you about the importance of education. That's why. And when that person told you about the importance of education, you were influenced them based on some type of credibility, some competent credibility. It's their wisdom, authority, and our knowledge. Okay? Nobody just does this. Okay? You are influenced to not only be a college student, but to also be even taking classes in the summer because someone influenced you. Now, it could have been your mom or dad, an older brother or sister, that one young uncle or aunt who always seems to know what they're saying, that one high school teacher who always seemed to say the right things. Okay? You might have seen someone on television or in a movie or heard someone on the radio or on a podcast, and something they said influenced you, and that's why you're in front of me today. Well, let me tell you why I'm in front of you today with my multiple college degrees. Okay? I was a kid growing up in Lyndhurst. Okay? My parents didn't even own our house. We were renting the first floor of a two-family house. And there were 4 kids. 2 parents, 4 kids in this little 2-bedroom or 3-bed. It was like 3 bedrooms, but that third bedroom wasn't exactly a bedroom. And I wasn't exactly in the top of my class. I mean, I graduated with 180 kids. I didn't finish academically in the top 100. So after I graduated from Lyndhurst High School, I went to Bergen. And after 1 semester, I was on academic probation. I then went in the Marine Corps. But in the back of my head, I always had something in the back of my head. It was the words from my father through most of my years growing up, telling me about the importance of education. You need to get your education. Education is important. You got to get your education. Now, as my father's telling me this and I'm looking at him, I get that sense of competent credibility, wisdom, authority, and knowledge that he knows what he's talking about. Not because my dad had multiple college degrees, but actually because of the opposite. My dad, after his sophomore year, dropped out of Dickinson High School in Jersey City. And to this day, my father is about to turn 79 years old. He still does not have a high school diploma. But when my father was 18 years old, he went into the Navy. When he got out of the Navy, he went into the trucking industry. And for about 35, 40 years, my father was a very well respected figure in the trucking industry. He knew his job very well, and he was very well respected by the truck drivers at his company, the management at his company. The only problem was, is because he had no education, my father would barely rise, whereas younger, more well-educated people would, of course, rise much further than my dad. It got to the point that probably the last 5, 6, or 7 years that he worked, he even told me, he says, well, what's the use of putting in too much? I mean, and my father really worked hard for about 30 something years. And then the last 5 years, it's like, well, I'm watching all these younger, much more well educated people go up. So he always told me. And I always looked at him with the wisdom, authority, and knowledge. Not that he knew by having an education, but he knew by not having that education. So I stand in front of you today. I've been a professor at Bergen. I'm going into my 22nd year. Okay. And I would consider myself to be a very successful person. And I owe it to the credibility, the competent credibility demonstrated by my dad and how he influenced me. The next type of credibility is character. Okay. Now, in character, two key components to that, or two key terms, is reputation and honesty. Basically, who that person is. Just simply by who they are, they then can go ahead and influence you. All right. For example, a lot of times when you have a TV commercial and somebody wants to sell a product and they go ahead and they get a celebrity spokesperson. And you look at that commercial and you say, well, if that person says it's a good product, I'm going to buy it. Well, that's why they do that. That's what a celebrity spokesperson is to do. That's why they're hired, is because they have credibility based on character, based on who they are. And I'll give you a great example. Uh-oh, my phone's ringing. And it is my wife. Hold on for a second here. I'm going to let you take this with my wife. Hello? No, I'll get that on my own. That's all right. I'm in the middle of the video. You're actually in the middle of the video with me. But you're not on speaker. I didn't put you on speaker. All right. Well, thanks for calling. Love you. Bye. All right. Wife is doing a Sunday night run to ShopRite. Anyway, if you happen to be up late at night and if you watch cable TV, usually from about 2 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the morning, you're just inundated with infomercials. All right. Well, one of the most famous infomercials ever has been running for about 22 years. It's a home gym product. And of all the different incarnations of this infomercial, there's one person who's always been at the center of all of these infomercials. And that, of course, is one of the most famous people in America, and not the world, karate master Chuck Norris. All right. And Chuck Norris, of course, uses the home gym. And, of course, it's one of the best-selling products in the history of infomercials, this home gym that he pushes. Why is it successful? Well, it's simple. Chuck Norris is 80 years old and can still kick everybody's ass. So when people see him saying, oh, I use this to stay in shape still, well, people say, well, Chuck Norris is getting it. I'm getting it. And so Chuck Norris is a great example of someone who has earned credibility just based on who he is. All right. Now, the last type of credibility that's earned is sometimes, people may have competent credibility, but they have a little trouble getting people to believe that they have that competent credibility. So they then establish credibility based on charisma. Okay? Now, there's 4 key terms: appealing, concerned, enthusiasm, and sincere. Those are the 4 key terms that make someone a charismatic speaker, someone who's able to influence an audience based on their charisma. All right. And if you take out that I, that S, and that last A in charisma, you get the word charm. Absolutely. All right. Absolutely. Now, I'll give you a great example of charisma and how I was influenced by charisma. Um, I'm a little older now and I haven't been to the gym in a while, but you can tell my chest is a little bigger than the average uh, guy's chest. And if you look at one of my older videos on my YouTube channel from my 50th birthday, you'll get an idea why. Well, that all started actually many years ago. I was about 13 years old and I was a little shorter than everybody else. And, I got a little picked on a little bit, but I played football, but I really wanted to be stronger. And then, my family was one of the first families in 1978 to get cable TV. And we got something called HBO, home box office. Well, a movie came on, a documentary. And it was a documentary that centered around a 28-year-old guy from Austria who now had become an American citizen. And he was vying for his sixth and final Mr. Olympia bodybuilding competition. He was going to retire after this last competition. And although it was a documentary about the world of bodybuilding, he was, of course, the primary focus. And I have to tell you, I'd never seen anyone so cocky, so sure of themselves, but yet the hardest working man in a gym than this guy. And the funny thing is, I couldn't really pronounce his name. It's Schwarzenegger or Schwarzenegger or what? Didn't matter. I just needed his first name, and that was Arnold. And at 13 years old in 1978, I'm watching this documentary called Pumping Iron, and Arnold just totally, totally had me in the palm of his hand. And before you knew it, I had my dad buy me a weight bench, some weights. Then I became a freshman in high school, and I would immediately after football season, I didn't even wrestle. I went to the weight room after school every day. And then before you knew it, okay, even what you see in that video on my YouTube channel, I think it was one of the first videos I posted, going back to my 50th birthday, and you look at the weight that I was putting up, all those years that just wanting to be big and strong and have the big chest, it was all because I was influenced by Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right. So now take a look at your assignment sheet. This is what I need from you. I want for you to document for me, even though the sheet explains it all, I'm just going to say it anyway. I want you to document for me three people who have influenced you. Now remember, everybody's influenced by someone. You don't ever do anything without being influenced. Okay. And like I said, it could be someone who's close to you. It could be a TV commercial. All right. Give me three people who have influenced you. One who influenced you based on competent credibility, someone who influenced you based on character, and someone who influenced you based on charisma. Have those to me tonight at 7 o'clock. And keep working on those persuasive speeches. And we'll see you soon. Arnold.